As I always say that one of the hardest things on Tisha B'Av is not greeting a tzibur. Whenever I come to speak to a tzibur, especially a chashuv tzibur like our Aguda, I like to greet everybody. Being that we are mourners, and that's a stark reality. It says that we practice Avelis Chadasha, a new mourning. And that's why we sit. I am actually not sitting, I'm actually sitting on a chair, both because of all the cameras and also because of my COVID. But I will sit once it turns tzeis, but I'm a little bit more lenient now until tzeis, because I want to be able to speak in front of all the cameras and the tzibur correctly. The new morning that we feel for a temple that we haven't had for more than 2,000 years is something that's very special about us. That we're able to mourn with such a newness for something that we've never seen. Of course, this year, the mourning is a lot easier after October 7th and after all the losses of soldiers throughout this terrible war, and we've come to a crescendo in a heightened security time at this time of the year in Eretz Yisrael, which is, I think, more security than they've had maybe ever, in such a heightened state of alert. The military rabbinate paskined that no active soldiers are allowed to fast. Not that they're permitted to eat, but they're not allowed to fast because they have to be ready to do battle and to save Klal Yisrael, with the help, of course, of Hashem. In this short talk, there's a legend that when Rav Elia Lapian, who is, it's assumed that he had Gilui Eliyahu when his wife was very sick. Someone came to him when all the doctors gave up and told him to follow him, and took him out and showed him a particular growth from the ground, and he told them to uproot it and boil it and give it to her. So with nothing to lose, Rav Elia did so, and she got better. And Rav Elia would say to those that were close to him that must have been Eliyahu Navi. Later, when Rav Elia Lapian was in Eretz Yisrael, and he went to the Ger Rebbe to ask the Ger Rebbe for a bracha, so the Ger Rebbe said to him, a man who is Zoichet to have Gilui Eliyahu doesn't need my bracha. And Rav Elia responded back, a man that knows it about it, I want his bracha. And so they say that when Rav Elia was in his late 80s, the family tried to convince him not to get up at his pre-dawn schedule. So he said that he's getting ready to meet his Creator, and he's going to go, Hashem is going to make a cheshbon and go through Shulchan Aruch. And in the first page of Shulchan Aruch, it says, Yiskaber Kari, Lamoy Baboiker, you should be like a lion to get up in the morning, Lavoido Isbayrai, that a person should awaken the dawn, not the other way around. So he says he wanted to fulfill that halacha. Rav Pesach Kron points out that in the very first siman of halacha, it also says, and this is something that's more attainable to us, Roy l'kol yirei shemayim, it's fitting for every God-fearing person, she'ei meitzer v'dayeg al churban beis hamikdash, that we should be aggravated and worry about the destruction of the temple. Of course, nowadays, that's an easy thing to do, because if the temple would be with us, there's no question about it that we wouldn't be afraid of thousands of missiles and drones from Iran and its proxies. With the Shekhinah in our midst, we wouldn't be afraid of anything. The Shalah HaKadosh says that's why it used to be a minhag that during the week, when before we benched, we used to say the capital of Tillim of Al Naris Bavel. Most of us don't do that anymore. But it's in order that as we enjoy our repast, we should think about the Churban, right? What's Al Naris Bavel? Al Naris Bavel, Sham Yoshavnu Gam Bachinu, B'Zachreinu Es Tzion. We sat, we cried when we remembered Tzion. Camps used to have that they would sing during the 3 weeks, Al Naris Bavel, and talk about the Churban. I always like to refer to the Gemara in Shabbos. And this Gemara in Shabbos is something that we live in a retirement community. In a retirement community, if there's any time to think about this Gemara, it would be when we've already moved into the stage of a retirement community. The Gemara says, what is a person going to be asked by their final din v'cheshbon? It's something that all of us have to be thinking about. We have to be preparing to answer, to have a good answer. So the Gemara says that the first thing Hashem is going to ask from each and every one of us is nosata v'nosata be'emunah. Did you do your business faithfully? Rapam always used to say, why doesn't it say nosata v'nosata be'emes? So Rapam used to say that a businessman should do his business feeling that Hashem is looking over his shoulder. That's nosata v'nosata be'emunah. The next question is kavata itim la Torah. Did you make regular time to learn Torah? Now this means that it's not that, I go to a shir when I can. Kavata itim la Torah, and it doesn't say kavata ace. Itim means every day, once in the morning and once in the night, a person has to have a fixed time to learn. It's not, I'll give a shmek here and a shmek there. I catch a shir on when I can. We have fixed times when we eat our meals. Supper time. We have fixed times when we do our lawn. We have fixed times when we do the laundry. A person has to have fixed times to learn Torah. And Hashem is going to ask us that. And it's not enough if a person says, I go to the Daf Yomi in the night. That's nice. But what about during the day? It has to be every 12 hours time. Now, some of you might be wondering, wait a second. The Gemara says in Masechta Sanhedrin, Tchilas dinoi shel adam eino ela b'divrei Torah, that the first judgment of a person is with Torah. Here it's the second. First is business, and then Torah. So Tisha asked the question. Tisha says, for a person that's learning, his first judgment will be about his Torah. A person that's working, the first judgment will be about work. The third question is, Asakta b'pirya v'rivya. Did you try to have a good Jewish family? By the way, I heard from many darshanim that say that Asakta b'pirya v'rivya today also means, did you help people to get married? Asakta b'pirya v'rivya. Did you make it your asik that people should be able to have children? People that can, they know boys, they know girls. It's a big thing today. You know, anybody that has the merit of making a shidduch, all the joy that couple has, and all the children and grandchildren that couple has, he or she who made the shidduch has shares in. It's one of the great investments of life to make a shidduch. Those are the first three questions, and most of us feel pretty good. Yeah, I'm an honest businessman, and I make time to learn Torah, and I have a nice family. What's going to be the fourth question? So if you would have asked me, I would have said the natural fourth question would be hispalalta b'minyan, or it would be achalta kosher, shamarta Shabbos, shamarta taras hamishpacha. Any of these questions would have followed by me like a glove. None of these are the question. The fourth question is tzipisa liyeshua. Did you hope for the Yeshua? Did you hope for Mashiach? And many of us will not be able to say, yeah. What are we going to say? We watched a movie on Tisha B'Av about the Beis Hamikdash, about Mashiach. Truth of the matter is 3 times a day in our Shemona Esrei we say, Ki lishu'ascha kivinu kol hayom. For your salvation, I hope every day. But do we feel it? In our benching, we say, Rachem na Hashem Elokeinu al Yisrael amecha v'al Yerushalayim yirecha. It's true that every tefillah multiple times, we answer Amen to Yiskadol v'Yiskada Shmei Rabbah, which is based on the pasuk in Yecheskel, Hiskadilti v'Hiskadishti v'Na'anati ben ha'amim. There will come a time where you will become magnified and sanctified amongst all the nations. And we answer, Hashem, let that time come. Amen. And first of all, Amen means I believe in it. And Ken Yehi Ratzon, or like the Eilas Tamid says, Ulavai. We say every day 3 times standing up, Valkeina Kavalacha Hashem Elokeinu Lirois Meira B'Seferes Uzecha. But this is the time of the year where we're supposed to really work on this. You know, until the First World War, Palestine was under the control of the Turks, the Ottoman Empire. Afterwards, the League of Nations gave the care of Palestine over to Great Britain. That was the infamous white paper that caused so much tsaros for Klal Yisrael. They put in a high commissioner of Palestine a not from Jew by the name of Sir Herbert Samuel. And as part of his introduction to Palestine, he came on an official meeting to the chief Rav of Palestine. The chief Rav, of course, was the venerable tzaddik, Rav Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld. And that was a very, very high-level, famous meeting between the representative of the crown, Sir Herbert Samuel, and the great tzaddik, Rav Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld, like the Chafetz Chaim, like Rav Steinman. He lived in abject poverty in a basement apartment. So Rav Moshe Blau, who was he didn't even have electricity. Rav Moshe Blau, who was the head of the Aguda, wanted that Rav Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld should meet him in a fancy house. But Rav Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld said, no, let him meet me where I live. So then they wanted to buy the Rav a new table and chairs. He said, no, this is the way I live. I don't want to fool anybody. So, with a great entourage and Secret Service, they came down to the tiny basement that Rav Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld lived in, and Sir Herbert Samuel made a crack. The rabbi couldn't find any lower apartment than this. So the legend has it, and it's interesting. I heard this story said two different ways. The way I always heard the story said, told over, is that he took him to the window and he showed him that from the window he had a clear view of the Kaisel. He says, I have this apartment because of its view. It's the most beautiful view in the world. That's the holiest sight on earth that I have a view of. That's the version that I always heard. Now I hear that Rav Shmuel Dishon says a different version. And it has the ring of truth in it. That he showed him the view from the window, and at that time you understand that that's when the Kaisel was still under Arab control. And they kept it deliberately in squalor. And he pointed at the view of the Kaisel and he told Sir Herbert Samuel, as long as my God lives like that, then I'm going to live like this. That's what we mourn for today, as we're thinking about how our God is living in ruins with a tumah, with a mask on top of where the Har HaBayis, where the Beis HaMikdash HaShlishi should be. As we work on the feelings of the day, let's be honest. Sitting in our relative comfort and high comfort in our homes, in fairways, made special for our comfort, all on the first floor, with the jacuzzi, with skylights, with picture windows. It's hard to feel a sense of gullus and mourning. There's a famous story told, very famous story told. Many of you might have seen a film of this because it is captured on film the third day of the 6-Day War, when the soldiers for the first time were able to go actually to the Kaisel and fall on the stones and cry, and tears were coming out of everyone's eyes. Finally, we have access to the last vestiges of the Beis HaMikdash. And as the story goes, while the religious soldiers were falling and crying and saying Tehillim and giving Haidah, there were two non-dati, non-religious soldiers just sitting there and looking. And then one of them burst out crying. And the other one turned to him, why are you crying? So he says, Ani boche al asher ani boche, asher al asher eini boche. I'm crying asher al asher ani lo boche. I'm crying on the fact that I'm not crying. I'm looking at them with their closeness to God and their tears. I'm crying that I'm not crying. And in a way, one of the things that we do at this time of the year is we cry on the fact that we're not crying. We're not as attached. We don't have such a sense of loss. And that's what we do with our mourning, to really feel that sense of loss. So many Yidden, millions of Yidden, are now in harm's way because we don't have a Beis HaMikdash. People are sick because we don't have a Beis HaMikdash. We don't have the atonement of the Karbanos. People are in abject poverty because we don't have the Shulchan. And that's what we mourn for. We mourn for the Shechina B'Gelusa. And may it be that in the merit of our tefillas, our kinnis, our fasting, that Hashem has rachamim on Klal Yisrael, on the Eretz Yisrael, brings safety to Eretz Yisrael, and the bias Beis HaMikdash b'mher v'yameinu. Chanani ben Akasha Amar.